Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about Kinera Celest Relentless. So this is a 1+6, and those of you familiar with Kinera sets, you know that they do very nice shells and very nice designs, and this one is no different, right? That is a very nice looking faceplate, says Celeste on it. The bottom is kind of a smoke, kind of a heavy smoke style. You can see the dynamic driver. That's an 8mm dynamic driver kind of poking through, and somewhere on the side we can run into at least two or four balanced armatures. I'm not sure how they are actually arranged, but there's a couple of them there. So again, if you're familiar with the Wyvern sets, the shells are a little bit smaller. This one's a little bit bigger to account for the 6 balanced armatures and the dynamic driver. The cable is a very nice 8-core SPC style. It is modular as well. And again, Kinera does nice cables. They do nice shells. They do nice packaging. All of that is kind of up to standard as you would expect from Kinera on the Relentless. So we'll kind of jump into it at that point and say, what is it? Again, like I said, this one is an 8mm dynamic driver. It does have 6 balanced armatures, and it is what I would call a low volume hybrid. So what's the recipe here as far as the Relentless recipe? So the vocals, you can kind of see they are pushed kind of really far, a little bit early, quite above the Harman target. That gives you a very forward style vocal, very clear at low volume, and you can kind of tell that is the center point or the focus of this set. He kind of got this adjusted to just how he liked it at his volume, so the vocals are very clear, and then kind of match the bass and the upper treble to match this style volume. So get the vocals right. And then, at low volume, where the vocals are kind of pushed forward like this and they are elevated that way, you get very clear vocals at low volume. But if you were to actually do a traditional treble shelf and roll it down like this, you would end up with an upper treble that you couldn't hear at that volume. So to account for that, you get quite an upper treble boost right here. So this lets you hear the upper treble and sound extended at low volume. And then the bass, like I said, this one is an 8mm, so it's not that heavy as it looks. 8mm graph a little bit large, but their presence is actually a little bit lower. So you have a bass shelf that is complementary to this volume level at these vocals, and then you have this complementary upper treble, which fills in what you would hear at low volume to account for what you would normally hear at higher volume. Just bump all of that so it's all heard, and that's essentially the recipe for Relentless. It would be very hard to hear all 6 balanced armatures at low volume, so you add that large upper treble boost, and it sounds extended, add enough bass for balance, but it's an 8mm, so the curve is a bit exaggerated. It's like, that's basically what is going on with this set and why it's a low volume set. If you actually try to raise the volume here, or we'll start here. So does the recipe work? And I would say yes. At low volume, you do get a sense of the whole frequency range from kind of the sub bass-ish, kind of right over here, all the way through this extended style upper treble. You can kind of hear all of that at low volume. So what does happen at higher volumes? It does sound quite shouty, it does quite sound thin, it does sound nasal. It ultimately will give you a headache. As soon as the timbre changes, you've rotated a little bit too far on the volume. But, these levels are really, really quite elevated, and it's just not going to stand up to any kind of medium volume. This needs to be very, very low, kind of right. You hear it in the vocals, right at the point where the vocals start to sound clear. That's pretty much where the tuner stopped adjusting his volume, and then just matched the both ends to that specific volume. So if you go above it, these two take over, and it's going to sound very strange, and the timbre is going to change really quickly. So yeah, most definitely this one is a niche set, and it's very much targeting people who listen at low volume and want to hear what a hybrid sounds like at low volume. So the bass, 8mm, so it's less present than it appears, but has a nice punchy sound. As the mid bass level is higher, the sub bass is lower. It kind of sounds like it's in the background. So again, 8mm, so the presence is kind of a little bit lower, but you do get this mid bass punchiness coming through, which is the majority of what you hear. Again, at low volume, it's going to be very hard to hear really deep sub bass rumbles. if you really wanted sub bass rumbles, you would essentially have to do exactly what you'd have here. You would have to elevate this kind of way out there to hear that, to account for the volume that you were listening to, and that would all work out if that's what he desired to do, but he did not. So the mids, and again, what sounds best is females falling kind of right exactly there. Right on those early boosted upper mids, they will sound very clear as you would expect them to sound. But does it really sound like any other 1+X, 1+3, 1+4s, 1+5 or 6? And I would say not really. On this style set, with this style of volume tuning, it does give you a nice sense of clarity, but it's really hard to hear hybrid resolve. To really hear, are words really resolving anymore? Our instruments have a higher degree of resolution. It's extremely hard to hear those things at lower volumes. So I will say it resembles hybrids, but the upper treble boost does give you that sharper note definition as you would expect on a hybrid. But as far as actual resolution and texture to vocals, that is going to be very hard with this style of boosted tuning and the volume where it is. So the treble, again, at low volume, you do hear the lower, mid, and upper treble. So I think that was quite successful. I think the large upper treble boost does create space at low volume, and it does sound extended. So again, I think that was a success. I think this graph kind of looks really hard to digest if you are a medium volume guy, because this is just a ton of treble. But at low volume, I think it does do what they wanted it to do and give you a end-to-end extended sounding hybrid that sort of sounds like a 1+6, but it works at a very low volume, and I think they are successful in that. So that is what I got on Celest Relentless. So if you are a low volume guy, this one might be for you. If you are not a low volume guy, this one is almost definitely not for you. So thank you guys again for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.